We're talking about falling objects and the interaction of these different concepts: gravity, acceleration, velocity, and distance. So we'll play a short video clip. Play it one more time. And we're talking about an object that was at the top of this, and later on it's down at the bottom of it. Okay? Now, let's go to a specific problem. An object that is projected straight downward with an initial velocity v feet per second travels a distance s equals vt plus 16t squared, where t is the time in seconds. Now that s has to do with this distance right here. The object was up here, and later on it's down here. So it traveled a distance, a vertical distance of s. We'll let s be the distance it travels. And in our video, it was initially at rest, but in our problem, it's going to have an initial velocity that won't be zero. All right? And the formula we had, s was the distance, v is going to be the initial velocity. I think in our word problem, it's going to be 8 here, 8 feet per second. And 16 has to do with gravity. 16 is the acceleration of gravity, and t is the time. So we're trying to explain this formula with these pictures and with the video. Now, if Jack is standing on a platform 48 feet above the ground and throws an object straight downward with an initial velocity 8 feet per second, how many seconds will it take to reach the ground? All right, and we have 4 choices. Remember, this was our formula. S is the distance, v is the initial velocity, 16 is the acceleration of gravity, t is the time. So there's our formula. In our problem, it says s here, it's 48 feet above the ground, so s is going to be 48. V is this number right here. Give myself some room, right? 8 times t, that's vt plus the 16t squared. All right? So now we're going to subtract 48 from both sides. Now, why am I doing that? I want to get 0 on this side over here. I want to have everything over here and 0 over here. I don't want to have 48 anymore. Subtract 48. So we have the 0 that we're looking for. So bring down the 48, the 8t, and the 16t squared. All right? Let's put it in order, descending order. This is first. This is second. This is third. And let's say equals 0. Let's put the equals 0 over here. Okay? Now, that's not the simplest way to write it. Okay? If you notice, 8 goes into 16, 8 goes into 8, and 8 goes into 48. So if you factor an 8 out, 8 times 2t squared is the 16t squared. 8 times 1t is 8t, and 8 times what is 48? 48 divided by 8 is 6. And that's still equal to 0. So if I divide this by 8, the 8's going to cancel, and if I divide 0 by 8, I'll get 0. So you end up dividing this by 8, you'll have 8 over 8, which gives you 1. 1 times that parentheses, there you just write down what's inside the parentheses, equals 0 divided by 8 is 0. So this is the situation here, and we will now solve this for t. Okay, if we're going to solve this for t, the first thing we need to do is to factor this left side. I know it equals 0. We're not going to worry about that right now. We're going to factor just this left side right here. Later on, we'll set it equal to 0. Now, no fuss factoring says to copy the 2 down twice. We know that 2 times 2 is not 2. But no fuss factoring says write it twice, and then later on we're going to get rid of one of those 2's. You'll see later on I'll draw a line or an X through one of those 2's, and we'll get rid of it. Right now we're just going to copy it. It's called no fuss factoring. Get my template over here. We want the factors of what? Well, AC factoring says take 2 times minus 6. 2 times minus 6 is minus 12. So I want the factors of minus 12, which add up to be this number. So they add up to be that number. Okay, now since you have a minus 12, we want to have, when we get the factors of minus 12, we'll have different signs on it. Okay, and 12 times negative 1 is negative 12. Now why am I making 12 a positive? Well, the signs have to be different to get a negative 12, but they also have to add up to be a positive number. So the larger of those numbers is going to be positive. Now 1 times 12 is 12. 2 times 6 is 12. Okay? We can't use either one of these. I'll show you why. 12 minus 1 is not 1. And 6 minus 2 is 4, and that's not 1. So if I'm counting here, I'm going 1, 2, count with me, 1, 2, 3. 3 times negative 4 is negative 12, and 4 minus 3 is 1. So I'm going to use these two factors, okay? And we're going to copy the negative 3 here and put the 4 over here. And remember, in a few minutes from now, we're going to cancel out a 2. Why am I doing that? Because 2 times 2 is not 2. All right? So bring the negative 3 over here and put it here. Bring the 4 over here and put it here. Okay, now because 2 times 2 is not 2, I have to get rid of a 2. Okay, now notice this is 2t plus 4. We can write that down and factor it. Factor a 2 out of both of those. 2 times t is 2t, and 2 times 2 is 4. Now we're going to get rid of that 2. Okay, cancel him out. So my two factors, when I factor this, my two factors are t plus 2 and 2t minus 3. Now remember, this equals 0, so the factors are going to equal 0 also. Okay, now t plus 2 times 2t minus 3 equals 0. One of these must be 0, so suppose t plus 2 is 0. Or suppose 2t minus 3 is 0. Okay, so that's a 0 factor property. Okay, and if t plus 2 is 0, then what? Subtract 2. If 2t minus 3 is 0, then we're going to add 3. Let's go back to this one here. We just get rid of those parentheses. Subtract 2 here. You're going to get t is minus 2. What did we say to add on these? We're going to add what? Okay, so 2t equals 3. And divide both sides by 2. Divide this by 2. And divide 3 by 2. So 2t over 2 is t equals, and this is 3 halves, which is really 1.5. Okay? 3 halves is 1.5. Now we can't have a negative time. There cannot be a negative 2 seconds. So we throw out that one. Okay? So we're left with t equals 3 halves. That would be answer A.